welcome to Three Count Commentaries. This show was dreadful once again, and the people of Kentucky, they didn't care to be there. They didn't care to give any energy. They were just kind of like, okay, we're here. And then there was like a black ring around the arena where people were supposed to be, and there was nobody there. So, I think we're getting dangerously close to me trying to sprint through Dynamite. But considering it's the only AEW show I actually watch, I'm going to keep pushing through it. So we're going to do Dynamite from September the 11th, 2024. But we got to go with news and notes first. So let's start with the rumors. The rumor mill is a lot of discussion flying around about AEW and Fox. Now, some people are claiming, well, WWE is off Fox now officially. AEW is outside of their exclusive window with Warner Brothers Discovery. There has been some comments about Dave Meltzer, who asked Brian Alvarez if WWE will regret their video package on how great Fox is as his partner. So, this led to a lot of people running around in circles, saying that the Warner Brothers Discovery deal is done, and then it's signed, it's over. It hasn't been announced, but it's signed and it's over. They've been saying that for weeks. But now they're saying that there's going to be some kind of Fox show. They're throwing out their FS1, they're throwing out their Fox Network Television, they're throwing out Tubi, they're throwing out some of everything. They think AEW is going to be on both Fox and Warner Brothers. That AEW is an AEW Shockwave. It's going to be a TV show. It's going to be on FS1. It's going to be on Tubi or whatever. Look, again, I said this before. The conversation around AEW's television deal should be reserved until the deal is announced. You can tell me that the deal is signed. You can say that. I don't believe you because you're not in the office. I don't believe you because they haven't announced anything. And unless they announce some actual money involved with this thing, I'm still going to be asking some questions. Let's talk about, is it possible? Well, it's always possible. Anything's possible in the world. Now, there's so many people who are running around saying AEW can sneak in and get that Fox deal that WWE dropped the ball on. And I say, look, here's what you're missing out on. The issue between WWE and Fox was about advertising revenue and retransmission fees, not the number of people watching the show. If Fox cannot make the money back, and we don't know whether they, lowballed WWE and then they took a higher deal with the USA, we don't know. But if Fox couldn't make that money with WWE, what makes you think they can make that money with AEW? Now, I'm just talking about Fox proper, the network television property. Because it's entirely possible they move it to FS1. It's entirely possible they put it on Tubi. But those are going to be lower value deals. It's a deal. It's money. But those are lower value deals. If WWE, if they can't monetize that, how are they going to monetize AEW? Will that, and what I mean by that is, the brands are attracting sponsors, attracting advertisers. Just watch Dynamite. The DraftKings is pretty much the only sponsor on the show. Look at the commercials for Dynamite. I've been talking about this for 2 years. If you've been listening to this channel, I said it right around the time of the Domino's pizza thing. Watch the commercials for Dynamite. There's clearly something going on where they don't get a lot of sponsorship. they don't get a lot of advertisers. That's what the networks are looking at. Yes, it's important how many people are watching the show. Yes, it's important what kind of people are watching the show. AEW has told their fans, our fans are better educated and they have more money than the WWE fans. Well, what they don't tell you is that there's fewer of them. So the average is skewed. WWE is always going to be skewed poor because there's so many people. It's not an exclusive niche product. It's actually very, very mainstream in a niche industry. AEW having a niche audience and a niche product, it might not appeal to what Fox wants. If Fox wants sports, is AEW really going to count as sports? Well, they tried pro wrestling. It didn't work out because they couldn't monetize the viewership. Are they going to be able to monetize the viewership for AEW? Now, I think that takes Fox, the network, off the table. Does it take FX off the table? No. Does it take Fox Sports 1 off the table? No. Does it take Tubi off the table? No. So Dynamite going to Fox, I don't believe it. Will they go to a Fox property? It's entirely possible. But until something is announced, I just don't see the purpose in wringing our hands about it or being too excited about it. The AEW fans are believing what they want in terms of this deal. They're believing whatever somebody says online because it benefits them about this deal. In reality, however, this thing is likely nowhere near finished and probably not as big a deal as they want it to be, unfortunately. Now, let's go to the flip side. There's a gentleman by the name of Andrew Chapados, and he works for The Blaze. That means he works for Glenn Beck. He put out a tweet on September the 9th talking about AEW's television deal that got the fans all worked up. They started, of course, they did their favorite, that is WWE PR, Legentil is at work again. But what did this guy say? And is there any validity to it? So he said, quote, sources close to AEW and Warner Bros. Discovery deal tell me AEW was on their back foot. On top of Warner's already having about 25% from the original deal, AEW likely had to give up more equity to get the deal done. AEW apparently didn't receive any other third-party offers, which obviously hurt their negotiations. Ratings have cooled off. Whether or not that's from the product or recent controversial moves remain to be seen. I've reached out to AEW for comment and will update with applicable responses. There has been no update with applicable responses. And the AEW fans just started attacking him because he works for The Blaze. So that means he can't be a sports reporter because he's a conservative, which makes no sense. But let's look at his individual points. I've never heard of this guy before. That's why I don't believe him. I'm not listening to this guy because I don't know who he is. I don't know where his information came from. He says sources close to AEW and Warner Bros. Discovery. I don't know if I believe that, sir. You're going to need more people to vouch for you. And then I saw a video of him, and he looks like a guy who just does podcasting in his bedroom. You know, so he doesn't look professional at all. So I'm not going to buy it. You know, that's like getting your information from me, you know, even though I'm honest, I promise. Never mind that stutter. So he says, on top of Warner's already having about 25% from the original deal. All right, so that means that are they trying to give AEW a 25% pay cut? Because that's what it sounds like right before that comma. It sounds like they're offering AEW a pay cut. I don't know why they would go for that. It says AEW likely had to give up more equity to get the deal done. Now, this is believable because I think most of us, myself, I think Brian Last maybe kicked the idea around. Brandon Thurston has said it. A couple of other people think that Warner Brothers Discovery has some kind of ownership stake in AEW. When Tony Khan was asked directly about it, he did not deny it. He didn't say, well, I own 100% of AEW, or my father owns 100% of AEW, or me and my father are 50-50 on AEW. He says that he keeps all the voting stock and he runs all the creative, all that kind of stuff. Not what we asked. Not the answer to the question. Right? So, I think that there's a good reason to believe that Warner Bros. Discovery has some level of ownership in AEW. That being said, if they do, that doesn't mean that they can't also do third-party Fox deals. Or why does it have to be Fox? As a matter of fact, we'll talk about that later. Anyway, it doesn't preclude them from going somewhere else just because Warner Bros. Discovery owns a piece of it. It would just be Warner Bros. Discovery getting a piece of that deal. But I don't necessarily believe that they're trying to offer them a 25% pay cut. But when AEW got their first renewal, it was fast, and they announced it almost immediately, and we cruised right through it. But on this, we're dragging. We've been saying that the deal's signed, the deal's done. Deal's done, man. They're just waiting to announce it. First, it was they're waiting for the upfronts. Then it was, they're waiting for All In. Now they're waiting for Magic Sky Daddy to come down and, bless it or whatever. Everybody keeps forgetting their ink pens. So his second point, I'm talking about Andrew Chapados, says AEW apparently didn't receive any other third-party offers, which obviously hurt their negotiations. Well, you would have to know what other companies are out there, but you also have to realize we're not just talking about cable. We're also talking about streaming. And there are definitely some streaming services out there who would likely want to bid on Dynamite. Look, whether we like Dynamite week to week or not, there is an audience there. It's a dwindling audience, but it's an audience there. At one point in time, it was a substantial audience. There is a believable number of people that if you can get them to sign on to your streaming service, it can make a difference. You might still be losing money because all these streaming services are losing money. But you might just get your product in front of more eyeballs if, the AEW fans have to pay a little extra to see Dynamite. So that's an option. Do I think they got no offers? I think they were actually probably in negotiation with other people. But this is why I said, why Fox? At first, I was just kind of like, I've been noticing things, eyebrow raising things. Some of these decisions that AEW has made recently, despite the fact that their product is super cold. And at first, it was, and I'm going to admit this, it was WWE kind of, letting AEW test things out, like, going and doing the show over in Wembley and all that, and then WWE was like, maybe we'll do a Wembley show, and then everybody was like, no, what are you doing? You're just copying AEW. But then you started seeing AEW, start trying to move like WWE. WWE does a show in Australia, AEW is going to go do a show in Australia. WWE did like a big stadium show in Texas. Oh, AEW is going to do a big stadium show in Texas. It's like, okay, if they go to Scotland, trying to run a show, then I know something. But, following around to pick up the crumbs, that's not too bad. And that's why I say, like, I'm not that upset if it's Fox. It's good business. If you let WWE break through and plant a flag and then you just come in and get what you can, if that keeps your company afloat, it's good business. Let other people go out and do the research and development of the audience, and then you slide in and try to benefit from it as much as you can. Like when WWE did with India. They let TNA go in there and start up Ring Ka-King, waste all that money. And then WWE started investing slowly but surely in India. I think they pretty much have given up since then. Because this was years ago. But they let TNA do the heavy lifting of investing in the Indian market and building a product specifically for the Indians. And then WWE kind of slid in afterwards. But the idea that AEW wouldn't have any other third-party offers, I don't necessarily believe that. His third point was ratings have cooled off, whether or not that's from the product or recent controversial moves remains to be seen. Now, controversial moves, I would imagine he's talking about the needle, the cinder blocks, the plastic bag over the head. Maybe that might hurt people's interest in AEW, perhaps. But the ratings have cooled off is the most important thing. The most important issue is going to be the network asking, what is the viewership going to be? What is the expectation of viewership? And can we convert your viewers into ad dollars? Because that's where our money comes from. Ultimately, if you cannot tell them where their money is going to come from, they're not going to give you any money. Where is their money going to come from? You know, that's going to be the question here. So a lot of people spewing a lot of shits about AEW's TV deal. Nobody knows anything, I imagine. We're all just sitting back waiting, trying to figure it out. Andrew Chapados also got attacked for, he just found out apparently, he's a wrestling fan apparently. Not a hardcore fan, clearly, because he did not know that Nyla Rose was transgender and that Nyla Rose was an AEW wrestler. He just found that out. And because he works for the Blaze, and he's been absolutely destroyed online about it. So, there that go. Just a wink and a nod to continue to wrap that part of the story up. Okay, so let's get into Dynamite proper. They had a running angle throughout the show, which was Moxley and his boys. Moxley says that Bryan doesn't have the stomach for what's coming, and that the Black Bull Combat Club, they planned to build something that would last longer than them. And it says that the egos in AEW are out of control. He sees out of control egos everywhere. And then he says that Danielson was always his lordship's favorite, but his lordship had always saw more of himself in Moxley. Then he says that he now sees what his lordship saw. He says that Moxley believes that now he is the one true king. And that they tried diplomacy. And it didn't work. Now he is choosing war. At that point, we get later on Pac, Claudio, and Moxley assault Private Party and Commander, which leads to Marina Shafir choking out Commander because, well, he's not a fully grown man. He's like half a boy. At this point, Pac gets on the microphone, says that AEW is broken and that this group is a product of this environment. He then says that he has been lost, but now he found something that he can believe in, and that this company now belongs to them. This company is ours. At this point, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure where they're going, but all right. Then Darby Allin shows up. Now he showed up earlier. He was on his skateboard. He was wearing his pink coat. The pink coat is filthy, by the way. You should probably get that thing cleaned. So Darby Allin goes in the ring. Moxley immediately comes out there. Moxley is being a big gentleman, showing him he ain't got no knives, no razor blades, no pistols or nothing. Darby Allin starts talking about how much Moxley loves the business. I rolled my eyes and groaned. Started talking about how he was looking for wrestlers to look up to, and he looked up to Moxley because Moxley wouldn't sell out. Moxley had values. Moxley likes working in independence, blah, blah, blah. Moxley says basically that he wants Darby Allin to hand him his championship match. And Darby Allin is like, no? Like, what are you, crazy? By this point in time, brother, I forgot Darby Allin even had a title match coming. Darby Allin refused. He refused to just give the title match to Moxley. So Moxley challenged him at Grand Slam for the match, and Darby Allin said yes. Then he said that if Moxley wants to burn AEW to the ground, then Darby Allin will pull him into the fire himself. And I guess so. I don't understand what they're fighting for. When Moxley says this company is ours, what does he mean by that? Exactly. What do you mean by this company is ours? I don't know. Moxley wants to be the world champion. Well, that's obvious. But is this a takeover angle? Because I feel like we just did a takeover angle when the Elite tried to take over. Now the Blackpool Combat Club is going to try to take over. So I don't get it. Why are they trying to take over? Moxley says that there's egos all over the place. Is his problem with the Elite? Because then he should be fighting the Elite, right? And he said diplomacy doesn't work. Well, the Blackpool Combat Club have been cracking heads for 2 years. When have they sat down and tried talking things out with anybody? Moxley's been headbutting people to death and busting himself open for the entire time he's been in AEW. Like, are we supposed to believe that all of a sudden these guys have been some kind of ambassadors to... Look, ultimately, you can't have a takeover storyline without the main characters, which are the corporate guys. So even if you just want to have Christopher Daniels be involved, he needs to be involved. The Elite need to be involved. They're not involved yet. So maybe that they're going to fold them in later, but they should be involved at this point. They should have been involved already because Claudio just fought the Young Bucks last weekend, right? Why wasn't this important at that point in time? Did he say, well, we need to take over. We need to do something. We need to collect all the belts. We need to get all these belts away from these guys. It wasn't even an angle then. It didn't exist then. This whole thing happened after Claudio already lost to the Young Bucks. I don't get it. But I'm willing to give it a chance to play out. When you let people tell stories, you just gotta give them the space. Darby Allin, please clean your coat. You look homeless. You look like a bum. Christian Cage says that he has infinite aura and that Bryan's days are numbered, and he's going to beat him so badly he's going to wish his wife had CTE to forget his championship run. I don't know why Christian had to be out there, but nice to see his smiling face. Will Ospreay is backstage with Don Callis. Don Callis cashes in his favor that Will Ospreay owes him to get Kyle Fletcher to team with him for tonight's gauntlet match. And Will Ospreay initially didn't want to do it, but after Don Callis cashed in the favor he owed him, and the favor he owed him was for letting him out of his contract. So, and because Kyle Fletcher asked, because he's got tired of being a loser. And the idea is that Will Ospreay has won every gauntlet that he's been in, so he would win this one too. So, the main event of the evening, which everybody was super excited for, because they thought, oh, the machine guns are going to come in. Oh my God, this is going to be so cool. Nope. Didn't happen. Guess what happens when you assume? You make an ass out of you and me. But you ain't making an ass out of me because I knew they weren't coming. I'm not saying they're going to NXT. I'm just saying I knew they weren't coming. They was going to come in to AEW. They did it already. So the tag team gauntlet featured a bevy of fucking losers. FTR, the Undisputed Kingdom, The Righteous, who got beat by one man, by the way. The Acclaimed, who used to be over. MXM, which is Mason Mansoor. Get real. Top Flight. Top Flight have been in AEW at least 3 years. They're completely and totally underdeveloped. Last time I saw them, they were dressed like pilots. They were dressed like pilots. It was like 1995 WWF. So Top Flight, no, they were not going to win. I'm just surprised nobody's legs broke. And then there was the Outrunners. Now the Outrunners are actually fun. The Outrunners remind me a lot of the old Southpaw Regional Wrestling skits from WWE, where they're clearly doing a throwback gimmick to like the 80s and how pro wrestling used to be. And it's fun. It reminds me a lot of Johnny Swinger from TNA. Me and Darren Gordon-Hill, we love Johnny Swinger. And we kind of bonded over the whole Johnny Swinger thing. This works in that same vein. But they don't let them do anything, and they certainly don't let them win. They're just kind of on TV, losing all the time. But they have like fun like segments and stuff on Twitter, I think. I actually heard that they're moving units in terms of merchandise, too. I don't know if that was official or maybe I was just, scrolling and not paying attention. But I heard that, they actually moving units in terms of merchandise. So then the people got up when the Outrunners music played. They were woke. They were like, oh shit, something good's happening. Same thing with the Acclaimed came out. Not so much when the Righteous came out. Certainly not at all when Grizzled Young Veterans came out. You can hear a bee buzzing in the background when those dudes came out. Anyway, Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay won the match. So, Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay will challenge the Young Bucks at, I believe, Grand Slam. Or is it Wrestle Dream? I don't know which one it is. And quite frankly, I don't care. This tag team division is abysmal. It used to be very strong because the Young Bucks wanted it that way. And then I guess they decided they were the stars and that everything should revolve around them. And we see how that worked. That didn't work at all, did it? Match 1, Jack Perry defeated Lio Rush to retain the TNT Championship. Lio Rush, incredibly talented guy, very, very tiny. I mean, he was so small, he made Jack Perry look like Big Bill in there. Every time I see Lio Rush, he's the same age and he's getting smaller. I appreciate that Tony Khan gave Lio Rush a second chance, after the ugly way this whole thing ended the first time. But imagine having a guy that talented and not using him. Even if you say Lio Rush is tiny, he's too damn small. Lio can talk. Like we saw him in WWE. He can talk. You should be using this guy, if for nothing but letting him cut promos and get himself over. He should be out there being a character and doing stuff. But no. He's barely on the show. Jack Perry's a star, though. Very weird. And he apparently is Jesus. So he's going backstage. Because he's driving in a van. Again, I don't know what this... It's a black van. Covered in black tape, I guess. I don't know what's going on, man. Anyway, he says people like him are crucified in this world so that they can be worshipped in the next. And I said, is he Jesus? I understand that Jesus was a scapegoat. I understand that. It's the blood of the lamb. But are you sure this is the direction you want to go into, Jack Perry? You want to go into Jesus territory. Look, everybody is trying very, very hard here. And nobody's trying harder than Jackson Perry. And he continues to suck. And there's just no escaping it. And he just doesn't have the personality and the microphone skills or the charisma. He's not hateable enough. It's just not enough there. He's too bland. Speaking of bland, Hangman Adam Page. He's still feuding with Swerve in his head, apparently. Even after stabbing him in the face, he's still saying that if you tried to protect Swerve from him, then he's going to destroy you. And then he was walking around menacing all the jabronis backstage, like Dark Order and a bunch of other bums. And then Double J, Jeff Jarrett, strolled up on him and said that Hangman is going to feel guilt, shame, and regret for putting his hands on Karen. That the man in the mirror is going to make him feel terrible about what he did to Karen. And then Hangman just beat up Jeff Jarrett. He just beat him up. Fuck you and your wife, Jeff. Man, it's like that out here in these streets? Is it like that? Really? Ricochet defeated Sammy Guevara. This was actually okay. It was worth watching. You had to watch something on this show, for God's sake. Sammy Guevara, I didn't even know he was still back. He's got a Ring of Honor belt. No wonder I didn't know he was back. He's supposed to be one of the pillars. He's supposed to be one of the main stars of this show. And now he's doing recreational flips in the ring with Ricochet. They were outside the ring forever so that Sammy Guevara could do a moonsault off the tunnel. He's trying to wrestle his way back into Tony Khan's heart. Because this is very 2019 AEW. Which is, in some ways, a positive. Because it's at least familiar to people who have watched this product before. And then turned it off and then came back. Seeing Sammy Guevara in the ring. Doing unnecessary flips. With no charisma. It's perfect. Ricochet won the match, obviously, because why would he lose to Sammy Guevara? Interesting choice of opponent, too. So, another angle that they played all night, Chris Jericho wearing the orange tinted jacket that was ruined 4 years ago, crying about his money and saying that he stole Orange Cassidy's book bag because Orange Cassidy owes him $7,000. And he's going to expose what's in the book bag if Orange Cassidy does not give him $7,000. This is a perfect opportunity to do something fun. Instead, after Chris Jericho and his minions beat up some jabronis, Jericho pulled out a picture of Orange Cassidy and the best friends. Okay, now look, pause. Let's pause right here. You mean to tell me that he's carrying a picture of him and two other men in a book bag, and he's a grown man, and he's carrying pictures of himself and two other men in a book bag, framed. He framed that thing, so it meant something to him. It's in his heart. I'm like, oh my goodness, you're a fully grown man. What next? You're gonna find bags of that dude's mama's cookies, and you're like, come on, get out of here. Anyway. Jericho says he's going to keep taking Orange Cassidy's things until he pay him his cash. He wants his cash. Orange Cassidy pops up on the screen. He goes into his pockets. He's got a bunch of quarters and things. Says that he got Jericho $7,000, but he doesn't have it all. And Jericho showed up earlier in the evening in a Bentley, a blue Bentley. And so here comes Mark Briscoe and some other gentleman who was just dangling on the side. They in a bulldozer, and the bulldozer is filled with coins. And they dump all these coins onto the Bentley, causing hundreds of dollars worth of damage to the car. And Jericho was acting like they ran it over and flattened it. His behavior was similar to Sid when Sid found his car crushed and compacted backstage, and he was like, why me? Why me? Why me? And Jericho's in the ring like, that's my car! That's my car! And he's on his knees and everything. I'm like, literally, they covered it in nickels and pennies. And if, for starters, it wasn't nearly enough nickels and pennies to be $7,000. And it's going to be very humorous when Jericho shows up with rolls of nickels and pennies next week, saying that you were like $50 short. It's probably like more like $250 short. But it was meant to basically give Orange Cassidy a one-up on Jericho. Usually, I don't mind a silly storyline like this, usually. I really don't mind, playing off of the past, usually. Jericho walking around and even wrestling in that orange stained jacket. It's funny, but it's hard for me to get into anything that involves Orange Cassidy. I feel like he's just been in the same situation the entire time he's been in AEW. So, and then also, it's not like they broke the window to the Bentley. They probably scratched it up and chipped some of the glass, but that's not that expensive of a fix. You know, like when Vince got his car destroyed, that car was destroyed. Like, it was completely and totally unusable. This Bentley was probably had some dents in it and probably scratched the glass up. But Jericho could probably fix that, no problem. You know, no problem on that one. It's not that big of an issue. But Jericho had to sell it like it was the biggest thing of all time. It's just making Jericho look petty, and they make Orange Cassidy look cheap. But whatever. Let's just move on from this. AEW is draining my energy. I'm telling you, it's killing me. It's slowly but surely killing me, and I know it. It's like smoking, you know? This is like the wrestling version of hitting a Marlboro. It's just rough. Mariah May defeated Queen Aminata. How are you queen and you always losing? She just changed her name to Aminata. She's fine. She's a good-looking woman. But she's a loser. She's always losing. For people who was making fun of Julia and making fun of Chelsea Green for their whiffing of kicks and slaps, please make fun of Mariah May, because she whiffed her knee strike in a major way. Also, when Mariah May went to do Randy Orton's hanging DDT, why did Queen Aminata jump and put her feet on the ropes? Bro, like, do they think people aren't paying attention? We know that Mariah May cannot physically lift your legs to force your legs onto the second rope. We know that. Just, if you're going to do what Randy Orton does, just do it like Randy Orton does it, which is throw them outside the ring and then grab them by the hair back into the ring. Instead of saying, I'm going to lift your tights a little bit, and you just put your feet on the ropes. We know you didn't pick her up. What are you doing? This is nonsense. This match was trash. Mariah May afterwards just wanted Mina Shirakawa to come back. She hasn't had her championship celebration because Mina has been missing. Okay. At least that's been established as a thing that matters to her and matters on the show. It's just very extremely unfortunate that Mariah May seemingly has lost almost all of her momentum. And since she won the title, they haven't done a good job at all of keeping up that momentum. Speaking of momentum, Hook has no momentum. He beat Jericho. Now he wants to fight Roderick Strong. Nobody cares, though. Now, the big news coming out of Dynamite, Nigel McGuinness is going to wrestle Bryan Danielson at Grand Slam. Nigel McGuinness thinks that Bryan Danielson has been ducking him, that Bryan Danielson is scared of him, and he is extremely angry that he has had to sit on the sideline and watch Bryan Danielson's career flourish, knowing that it should have been him. It should have been me. It should have been me. So, you know what? As much as I would like to complain about Ring of Honor graybeards getting dream matches on television, and this seemingly is what AEW is built for, and you have all of these guys on the roster that could probably use the push and use the time. Nigel McGuinness is a special case. You know, I don't think he wants to wrestle full time. I think he just wants to have this match. And you know what? Give it to him. If he can work it and Danielson's willing to do it, go for it. There was some confusion earlier about Danielson's ability to wrestle. People are saying, oh, Danielson wasn't going to be able to wrestle because of what Moxley did to him and all the injuries and everything. But I think the idea was that he wasn't going to defend the title. And now Nigel isn't asking for a championship match. He just thinks that the world championship fight at Grand Slam. And he got Tony Khan to agree with him. Now, this is an interesting scenario because this is purely for the sickos. You have to be familiar with Nigel McGuinness to even care about this match. Yes, if you've been watching AEW and you've been listening to Nigel McGuinness trash Bryan Danielson for weeks, finally paying off that angle is a good one. We never got Hulk Hogan versus Jesse Ventura, despite the fact that Jesse Ventura spent months and weeks and years dissing Hulk Hogan. And it seemed like they were going to go in that direction, but he never did because, Jesse Ventura, the blood clots and everything, he couldn't wrestle anymore. Eventually they did Bret Hart versus Jerry the King Lawler a couple of times after Jerry Lawler was running down the family of Bret Hart. Typically, if a guy has one person that they hate more than anybody else, eventually they do throw them in there and they have a match. So Nigel McGuinness versus Bryan Danielson, I'm all in on that. I like the idea. It's a throwaway match for this show, but it might bring out the people that Tony Khan wants. He's trying to get that, the fans of Ring of Honor from that era, which is like bring people in from Philadelphia, bring people in from New York City, bring people in from Jersey. He's really hitting that market, He's trying to get people in that market energized and in that age group, which is the age group is the people of their late 30s, early 40s, or maybe even mid 40s who are fans of Ring of Honor in 2002, 2004, or whatever. And this is a match that appeals to them. As somebody who occasionally watched Ring of Honor, I was familiar with both of these guys. I've seen these guys wrestle before. I'm familiar with the history, so it appeals to me on that level. But is it going to draw a TV number? Probably not. It may do better for the house than it would for the television, but at least it's doing something for somebody, because what else you got? Darby Allin versus Moxley? I don't know if that's going to draw, man, because Darby Allin, he ain't been looking strong lately, and unless you can really heat this Moxley thing up and get people to care, you're asking a lot. And then you got to understand also, there was no Mercedes on this show. There was no Swerve. There was no MJF. There was no Willow. There was no Chris Statlander. A lot of the people who were on All Out did not appear on this show. And that hurt the show because you're asking people to now just watch the show with none of the stars. The people that you told them were stars aren't featured. Okada didn't even have a match on this show. He just did a backstage segment. They're still teasing him versus Takeshita. But this show had no stars. And they're telling me, MJF and Swerve, man, they're going to take some time off. What do you mean they're taking time off? These guys work one day a week. Now, Swerve, okay, he's got to sell the brutality of the match, getting stabbed in the face, getting dropped on the cinder block. Understandable. MJF, though, why? Why is MJF not there? Why is Daniel Garcia not there? There was no follow-up on the Daniel Garcia angle. Where was he? No, there was no follow-up with Chris Statlander talking about her big win. Where was she? There's so many missed opportunities because it seems like Tony Khan is burned out. And that's what it feels like to me. Booking these gauntlets. Maybe he decided, I'm just going to take a week off, man. I'm just going to chill this week. And maybe next week will be better. But he booked Chris Jericho versus Orange Cassidy for next week. I think booking all of these shows has really drained TK. And he probably had more fun when he was doing it behind a computer where he could have anybody he wanted, doing whatever he wanted. In this situation, you have to deal with real people. You have to deal with a real audience who gets burned out on your product. You have to deal with real people who are saying, we're waiting for something new and fresh and exciting about AEW. And you think, bring in Ricochet, have him wrestle Sammy Guevara for 15 minutes. And everybody's like, yeah, that's fine, but how is that any different than you having Will Ospreay wrestle Kyle Fletcher for 20 minutes or whatever? It's the same stuff over and over again. You got to take chances. You got to do something different. So now he's trying something different with this Moxley thing, but is it really all that different? Because it's almost the same storyline he just did with the Elite, where there's 3 guys and they want to take over the company. The company is ours. I don't know, man. This has been very lame. Extremely lame. But this has been one of the worst Dynamite episodes in a long time because there are no stars on this show. And I should have known when they started the show with promos. I mean, they did like 3 straight promos before the first match, which is not typical for AEW. You know, AEW usually maybe a promo and then a match, but you know, usually it goes straight into the matches. This time they did 2 or 3 segments before they did the first match. That kind of told me right there that something was afoot, and that we were not in for a good long night. This show. But a dreadful product that Tony Khan is putting out there. I don't know how much he's charging for tickets, but it's too much. It's absolutely too much. He needs to get these people on these shows. This idea that people only work 1 day a week and they still get like substantial amounts of time off. I don't get it, especially if you're talking about contract negotiations and having 4 shows across 2 different huge networks. It's like, you gotta tighten this up. If that's what you're gonna do, you're gonna try to act like that. You can't even book the 2 shows you got. You had a Collision was supposed to be your B show that ended up being almost unwatchable. It's Rampage 2.0. Hell, Rampage started out with a spark. Now it's just garbage. There needs to be a change in AEW. It probably needs to change the booker. Maybe in order to keep things interesting, you just have Tony book the pay-per-views and Dynamite, and then you let everybody else book all the shows nobody cares about. And then he can save his energy and literally do something else. Just split the work ethic, I guess. Put somebody in charge of Collision and Rampage, your Will Washingtons or your Peppermints or whatever. Just put them over that and say, look, just you guys handle this. If you do something on that show that I like, I will bring it over to Dynamite. But just guys, do whatever you want. You know, the show's already paid for. Just have fun with it. Same thing with Ring of Honor. Just have fun with it. You know? You don't need to stress yourself over every hour of AEW television. Because the crowd, the fans, they're not watching every hour of it. So many people don't even bother watching Collision or Rampage. I know I don't. I don't know anybody who watches Collision or Rampage. Hell, most of the people don't even watch Dynamite anymore. Save yourself the energy. Get some sleep.
No one does it better.